Greetings ladies and gentlemen and the whole community of HBX.io. On this occasion we are going to talk about the association of HBX and kryptonite in a little details. We will start talking about XCN. Then we will talk about partnership with HBX.io. Let's start. The mini blockchain is one of the three core components to the mini blockchain scheme. It performs the first function of a blockchain. The mini blockchain is essentially just a normal blockchain, except that we don't need to keep a copy of historic transactions. It isn't truly finite, because changing the max block size could increase the average size of the mini blockchain. A mechanism for achieving a dynamic max block size is actually a part of kryptonite, but it's not a necessary part of the scheme. Bitcoin requires the full blockchain because that's the only real way to determine the full balance of all the addresses. However, we have the account tree to fulfill the task of managing account balances and recording the ownership of coins. We don't need the full thing. We can throw away old transactions and save an immense amount of disk space. However, we do keep a few hundred or a few thousand of the newest transactions, and that makes our mini blockchain. The mini blockchain also provides us with Bitcoin. We can start at the very beginning and work our way up to the latest point because we have the full blockchain. If an attacker creates a new mini blockchain from the oldest block available, new nodes would have trouble telling it apart from the real mini blockchain, because before that oldest block they have no history of what happened. The attacker can spend as much time as they need building up the cumulative difficulty of their mini blockchain because it's not an ever-growing CH. The attacker could then start broadcasting the fake chain, and it might propagate enough to impose a risk of becoming the main chain. The proof chain solves this by providing a mechanism which can act as a container for storing the long-term proof of work history so that we can calculate the total cumulative difficulty of any chain. Instead of totally deleting old blocks, we must maintain the block header so that we can always trace the history of any given chain and compare the total cumulative difficulty each chain. The main advantage of the mini blockchain scheme is obviously the increased level of scalability. Having the ability to discard all old transactions is a tremendously useful feature because it means a lot of disk space can be saved, and it also means that new nodes can synchronize to the network without having to download every transaction ever made. The reason old transactions can be discarded is because transactions are applied to the account tree as soon as a block is accepted by other nodes. We don't need to go back and reference that transaction at a later time like we do in Bitcoin. Keep in mind there is no such thing as unspent transactions in this scheme. It doesn't even make use of scripts. The inputs and outputs in our transactions do not point to other transactions. They simply point to addresses in the account tree, so the transactions aren't linked together the same way they are in Bitcoin, and we can discard all transactions after a safe amount of time has elapsed, enough to make the secret chain attack infeasible. Of course, the account tree will grow over time as new non-empty addresses come into existence, but the level of compression and scalability this system offers is truly unbeatable. There is no other known scheme that achieves anything close to this level of scalability, and with this level of scalability comes new possibilities and potential. Microtransactions. The Bitcoin community generally discourages tiny payment amounts, such as the small transactions made by Satoshi Dice. In fact, many people feel that those types of dust transactions represent spam because they bloat the blockchain. This is a problem for Bitcoin because nodes require the full blockchain before they can synchronize with the network. However, blockchain bloat isn't such a problem for kryptonite because in this scheme old transactions can be discarded and new nodes don't need the full blockchain to sync with the network. They only need transactions younger than the cycle time. So because of this we have more freedom to support smaller transactions and a higher transaction rate overall. However, there is one small catch. Although we can support small valued transactions, We can only be so lenient when the receiving address already exists in the account tree. The reason for this is because we don't want to go filling up the account tree with many low balance addresses, because that is our scheme's version of dust. The solution is a simple rule: if sending to an address which does not already exist in the account tree, the amount being sent cannot be lower than the transaction fee. Transaction messages. Like microtransactions, although possible, the Bitcoin community tends to discourage the storage of text messages in the blockchain because they must be stored forever. The early versions of the Bitcoin Qt GUI included a feature for including a custom text message with your transaction, but it has since been removed from the GUI in order to slow down blockchain bloat. Including a custom message with a transaction is a very common and useful feature that can play an important role in many merchant scenarios, so it's clearly important for any currency to support such a common and useful feature. The scalable nature of the mini blockchain scheme relieves us from the concern of blockchain bloat, and we can have full support for transaction messages for the same reason we can support microtransactions. All the transactions containing the messages can be forgotten by the network after some relatively short period of time. Cryptonite has native support for attaching custom messages to transactions. Since we don't use script, the message field is embedded into the structure of the transaction. A withdrawal limit is exactly what it sounds like, a limit set on addresses dictating the maximum number of coins which can be withdrawn from an address in a certain amount of time. The main downside is that a few extra fields need to be added to the account structure to enable the withdrawal limit system. The limit is self-set by account owners using a special transaction, and the default value for new accounts is unlimited. The purpose of such a system is to help prevent double spending, so that merchants can have more faith in transactions with zero or a small number of confirmations. How it works. A brief outline of how withdrawal limits work. Send the network a special transaction to modify the withdrawal limit of your account. Limit is specified as number of coins per block, and is saved into queue field. Such change will take effect in 100 blocks, and after that time the queued value overwrites the actual withdrawal limit value. Network accepts the special transaction, and after 100 blocks it will reject any transaction that would cause newly specified limits to be exceeded. A merchant can ensure he will receive funds by checking that there is no queued withdrawal limit change on sending account. Check that sending account balance is high enough so it can't be emptied too fast. Ensure transaction is not low priority and has propagated enough in network. If the claims of Mt. Gox and other businesses are to be believed, transaction malleability has caused quite a bit of damage to the Bitcoin economy. Of course, even if that's the true reason why Mt. Gox went out of business, it's still their fault for not understanding transaction malleability when it was well known about for a long time. Cryptonite features unmalleable transactions in order to avoid any repeat of such undesirable events and allow the transaction IDs to be reliable. This is achieved by having the sender sign that XCD and by ensuring that XCD will always change when the contents of the transaction changes. Removing transaction malleability. One of the reasons Cryptonite does not suffer from transaction malleability is because it doesn't use scripting, but more importantly it doesn't include the signatures when hashing a transaction, because signing the same data with the same key produces different signatures each time. The sender will sign that XCD, but signing it many times in no way alters that XCD, only the signatures. Thus attempting to alter the contents of the transaction will always chan. Cryptonite uses M7 algorithm proof of work. It has 1 minute per block, maximum of 1.84 trillion coins. It is mineable via HashBX cloud mining or with Nvidia cards. Next we will explain why it is a good idea to invest in Cryptonite. In our opinion, Kryptonite represents a good investment at the moment. Next I will elaborate a little more this explanation. Currently, despite the price, Kryptonite has the support of HBX.io, providing cloud mining services. That is a good guarantee of the good work of the project. It is also worth mentioning that Kryptonite is by design a real scalable coin and decentralized. It is also fast and light and safe. I will mention the success of 2017, reaching 3000 Satoshi. Currently there are more than 430 millions of XCN circulating with more than 9,500 active accounts. The price is currently low, which led us to think that a very high number of users are waiting for the price increase because they understand technology and its potential, since it is expected to surpass those 3000 Satoshis. The team works to guarantee the implementation of the currency for daily use. A strong, loyal and faithful community. By nature, HBX and XCN are made to join forces, since HBX.io has a solar energy mining plant for its cloud mining service for XCN as well. HBX.io bets on XCN very strongly. They also have their own HBX currency and have their own battle to earn the right to be listed in CoinEx. The current purpose of this agreement in its initial phase is to collaborate in both communities to be listed. HBX in CoinEx and HBX will support XCN to be listed in EX. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending this wonderful evening and for supporting our companies. Do not forget to vote for HBX in CoinEx and XCN in EX. Many thanks.